Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars, and here's this week's quick tip for luthiers. You might have remembered in an episode that I posted a while back, I had talked about making a long radius sanding block. This one's 30 inches long and has a radius of 12 inches. And I use this long sanding block for a couple of different tasks. First, after I make my fretboard, and even though I'm making fretboards with my CNC machine, there are very subtle tool marks left in the surface that I need to get rid of. And to do that, I'll use my long radius sanding block. And all I have to do is attach some sandpaper to the surface and then just gradually sand away those tool marks. Another use for this sanding block is it makes a good clamping call. So when I'm ready to glue the fretboard to the neck shaft, I can use the radius sanding block and then clamp the neck to the fretboard and get even consistent clamping pressure all the way across the fretboard and from end to end. Now the last task that I like to use this sanding block for is to level my frets after they've been installed. And I'll show you basically how I do that. The first thing I need to do is I need to make sure that the fretboard is level, and I use a notch straight edge which I place down along the center to make sure that the fretboard is level. And I also will use it to check to make sure that the top of the frets themselves are level. And if it isn't level, I'll adjust it using the truss rod and make sure that I get the fretboard perfectly level. And the next thing I need to do is I need to attach the sandpaper that I'm going to use to the block. And the sandpaper I'm using is P240 grit sandpaper, and it comes in these rolls, and I picked this up at Harbor Freight. It's about $8 a roll, and you can get a variety of different grits, but the 240 is perfect for leveling the frets. And to attach it, what I like to do is use extra wide blue masking tape, and I'll just attach that right down the center of the fretboard, or of the sanding block. Then I take some, this is just water-thin CA glue, and I'll just put a little bit right down the center, just like this. Doesn't take much. And then I'll attach just like that, and I'll have to hold it into position for a little bit till the glue tacks up and dries. Now before you can level the frets on the sanding beam, the first thing you want to do is mark the tops of your frets with a Sharpie. I'm using a red Sharpie here. It doesn't matter what color you use. But what this will do is it will help you to gauge your progress as you're leveling the frets. And what you want to try to achieve is to remove that Sharpie just from the top of the frets. And as soon as you've removed the last bit of Sharpie from your frets, you'll know the frets are level. And the goal is to try to remove as little material as possible. So you don't want to go too far. And that's why marking the tops with a Sharpie can help you to gauge that. And as soon as you see that last little bit come off the last fret, then you know you're done and you can stop, and you won't remove too much material. Now the process is really simple. I just simply place the neck fretboard down right into the center of my leveling beam, and then I'm just going to move it back and forth, putting a little bit of downward pressure, trying to keep my hands roughly centered. And then I'll stop and I'll check to see the progress. And what you'll notice is some of the frets are going to start to you're going to remove that Sharpie before you will on other frets. So you just got to keep working. Until you've removed consistently all of the red from the tops of the frets. And then another thing I would recommend doing is flipping the neck around and continuing to level that way. And the reason you do that is because if you have an error in your sanding stroke, by flipping the neck around, you cancel out that error. Now, another trick, some folks like to remove a little bit more material from the last frets. It's called fall off, and what that does is it helps to reduce string buzz at the end of the fretboard, which is where the string is vibrating the most. And the way you can do that is to simply place the neck so that the heel is at the end, put considerable amount of downward force here, and then just push it to the end like that, and then bring it back and do it again. And what this does is it removes more material from these frets here, but it does so in a uniform manner, then up here towards the end of the fretboard. Okay, well, there you have it. Another great reason for having a 30-inch long radius sanding beam. Now, unfortunately, it's not like you can buy these. I don't think I've ever seen them in the marketplace. As I said before, I made this myself on my CNC machine. And I know that not a lot of you out there have a CNC machine. But, we're getting to the point now where if you have an internet connection, you probably can find somebody out there who's got a CNC machine, and you can either send them a file or they could generate the file for you for a fairly reasonable price. In fact, if you can find somebody locally who has a CNC machine, you could probably make the blank yourself just by laminating up a couple of strips of maple like I did here, and then take it to them and have them carve that radius surface into it. It's simple enough to do, and it shouldn't be that expensive to make. And don't ask me if I'll do it for you, because I simply don't have the time to do it. But I'm sure you can find somebody locally who could do it for you, or maybe somebody online. And at this stage, I've got my frets level, and it only took minutes to do it. And the next step is going to be to recrown and then polish the frets. And this neck will be done, and I can install it in the body and continue with the final assembly for this guitar. So with that, I hope you got something out of this quick tips episode. If you did, make sure you click like, hit subscribe, click the little bell so that you'll get notifications via email every time I post a new quick tips or one of my From the Luthiers Workbench videos. And I only do a couple of weeks, so it's not like I'm going to be hammering you with all kinds of emails. But until the next episode, take care, and we will see you soon.